Yeah, I'm not waiting another day to discuss this. We're going to talk about it now. But Microsoft this last week has been just disastrous, revamping Game Pass plans, hiking Ultimate to $30 a month, being met to enormous outrage and mass cancellations. There was also all kinds of small little things that they hid away. They loved it, a little marketing propaganda shit of saying,
Xbox Game Pass is getting an upgrade, and now you have even more freedom to choose how you play the games you want.
It was none of that. It was also hidden stuff like points no longer directly redeemable for Game Pass subscriptions. That is a deliberate choice by this company. Also, xCloud getting paywalls. 1440p, you gotta be paying that $30 a month. There's also Microsoft removed DLC discounts for Xbox Game Pass members. Call of Duty, Indiana Jones, all the DLCs, no longer you're gonna get that 10% discount because this company is going all in on their greed. The reputation, they don't care about any of that. And that's why their defense that we talked about just in the last video a number of hours ago, price increases are never fun for anybody. That is their shitty defense that they came up with. That was their attempt to defend the greed that's going on here and their 50% price hike for Game Pass Ultimate. It is embarrassing and it is not stopping. On that subject of Xbox's response to all of this outrage, there's a lot more to that last video. I highly recommend it, especially Sarah Bond's comments from just the other day, which have aged extremely poorly with what's happened with everything Xbox. But the next domino that's going to fall, it has now become quite clear. It is advertising. Especially with monetization, there's always that one game, that one moment where things really start and they just take off. You look to Horse Armor, what it represented in 2006 or so with Oblivion. It brought upon the microtransaction hell that we now live in. A couple of years after that, we had loot boxes, which really took off with FIFA Ultimate Team, and it's the reason why the mobile free-to-play sphere is as shitty as it is nowadays. And years later, we had Fortnite with a battle pass system. That is something that I don't necessarily know if Epic Games really invented it, but many other developers took that as inspiration for all of the other horrendous monetization, especially surrounding battle passes, that we've seen implemented in mobile, free-to-play, and console premium experiences. And that's why advertising has been the next big domino that's a lot of within the gaming industry have said needs to fall, because in the mobile sphere it's prevalent. You watch a 30-second ad, you get access to some content that you typically would have to pay for. It's viewed as like, look, the developers are trying to be generous, but in reality it's just a scummy mechanic that can be abused in so many different ways, and now I very much fear that we are headed that way. There's already been tons of stuff over the years, like Xbox has messed around with this. The Verge article, this is coming from a couple of years ago. Microsoft's full-screen Xbox pop-up ads don't have to be annoying, but they're meant to be annoying. And this was an example of it with Modern Warfare 3. They used to, well, at the time, it was just exclusive stuff, games stuff that people don't really care about. Like an advertising for a video game, most people are a-okay with that. That's been prevalent on all of these platforms, PlayStation, Steam. You're going to have advertisements for games. But with it being intrusive like this, it was meant to be that way on purpose, because they want you playing their game, their Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And look, even just the other day with their Game Pass changes, we talked about this last video, but they have this as a full screen ad. It's aggressive and it's meant to be in your face, and I still love how this advertisement doesn't mention the specific fact that it's going up 50%, but they mention all of the lovely upgrades that are associated. But there's also been this. This is the thing that I fear. Xbox is advertising McDonald's on its dashboard, and fans aren't happy, rightfully so. This was just last year, and all of this makes sense when you start to consider what's been going on the last couple of years, not necessarily just with Xbox, but industry-wide. And when I say not just Xbox, PlayStation has been messing around with this too. They talked about this in 2022. Sony reportedly plans to put ads in PlayStation games. Sony is working to bring advertisements to free-to-play PlayStation games, according to a report by Insider. The ads would appear in games and are meant to give game developers a way to monetize their work and encourage them to continue building free-to-play games. This has not happened so far. A lot of this stuff has been put on pause over the years, and I think a lot of the gaming industry was waiting for somebody to take that step forward. We have seen some companies already do this in the past. NBA 2K is a great example. They did this a couple of times, and they were met to enormous outrage. Unskippable advertising returns to NBA 2K, fans angry, and it did cease after this for a while. But Xbox has only continued this, especially in Call of Duty. This is something that was exposed earlier on in the year. Activision quietly forces adverts into Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Warzone loadouts, and players absolutely hate it. At this point, it really feels like opening up a mobile game. And this was what people were seeing. It was advertisements for bundles and stuff that you could buy in the store. But imagine a future in which you pause your Call of Duty game and there's an advertisement for Taco Bell or Mountain Dew. Or say if you don't have the cash to play a game, you go on Game Pass and instead you have to watch a 2-minute advertisement to get an access to play for the next hour. That is the future that this AAA games industry, especially Microsoft, envisions, and it horrifies me because it could be a Trojan horse for so many other ways that advertising gets implemented in just terrible ways. And for what it's worth, especially with that Call of Duty situation, Activision did respond soon after, saying the intrusive in-game ads were a test, and added an error, Activision says, and obviously fans were not buying Activision's explanation for what happened. They were very much trying to implement that, hoping people wouldn't give a shit, but they did. They voiced their displeasure and they backed off for the time being. But like with loot boxes and all the other monetization schemes that we've seen over the years, a lot of this stuff is deliberate to gouge how the gaming community will react. And I said gouge, I meant gauge. Regardless though, I do bring up all of this for a reason. It is the announcement today. I mentioned this towards the end of last video, just a little bit about it. Microsoft is reportedly testing free xCloud gaming supported by ads with monthly play limits. Announcement and launch coming soon. This is according to The Verge's Tom Warren. He reports that Xbox Cloud Gaming supported by ads is currently being tested internally and does not require a Game Pass subscription. A public test is said to be coming soon with a release in the months ahead. Warren sources indicate Microsoft is testing approximately 2 minutes of ads before a game is playable for free via streaming. Microsoft is also apparently testing a limit of 1 hour for sessions with up to 5 hours free a month, but as Warren points out, this might change for launch. And I understand some people react to this saying, oh, it's just free, the ability for other people that don't have access, they can play games through xCloud. That's great. That's not what this represents. This represents a lot of terrible stuff on the way, especially in terms of advertising, especially with it being normalized. This is already a defense that's often used for the free-to-play spear, when people say that it's not intrusive, it's something that you could easily ignore. That's the same logic that has been used with all of the microtransactions, all of the monetization mechanics that have been thrown in people's face over the years, and all it has brought us is even more shit, whether that be pay-to-win mechanics or intrusive things that we cannot opt out of. But this news that is coming today is not new. This is something that we have known about for a while because Microsoft specifically said that this was on the way. This was from 2023, towards the end of the year. Microsoft is exploring offering free Xbox Game Pass streaming with ads. And this was something that Tim Stewart, the chief financial officer at Xbox, he told attendees at the Wells Fargo, of course, investors and wealthy individuals, that the company wants to bring Game Pass to every screen that can play a game. One potential method of expanding the service's reach that he floated included offering ad-supported game streaming to players in emerging markets. The vision I like to talk about is we have xCloud gaming streaming, so you can subscribe to Game Pass Ultimate and you can stream hundreds of hours to really any endpoint that has a browser experience. For models like Africa or India, Southeast Asia, many places that aren't console first, you can say, hey, do you want to watch 30 seconds of an ad and then get 2 hours of game streaming? Africa, as you know, 50% of the population is 23 or younger, with a growing disposable income base, all with cell phones and mobile devices, not a lot of high-end disposable income generally speaking, so we can go in with our own business models and say there's millions of gamers we would never have been able to address, and now we can go in with our business models. And I think this picture is starting to get clearer with what's been happening with Game Pass. You skyrocket the base, the prices to get the best service for Ultimate, especially with xCloud. If you want up to 1440p, you're gonna have to pay $30 a month. or you go with the lower end stuff. Obviously, they're going to start off with this being free, but I certainly think that eventually it's going to be a couple of dollars here and there you're going to have to pay. And then obviously you're going to have to put up with ads. Like I said, there's so many different ways that this can get so much worse. And I definitely do not trust this corporate trillion-dollar company that has shown time and time again they do not value gamers at all. Stuff that Sarah Bond, Phil Spencer, that leadership team of Xbox have said over the years, a lot of it has been blatant lies. A lot of stuff that has aged poorly, and it reflects on them that either they're ignorant of these facts or they just don't care. And also, for what it's worth, in 2023, we already knew that this was all on the way because of this article coming from Windows Central. They mentioned that recent Xbox Series X/S code strings we've seen seem to corroborate this, with the ability to earn 15-minute blocks of Xbox Game Pass access in exchange for watching ads. That is something that I guarantee is on the way. That's why this initial phase, it always starts off being very nice and affordable and friendly. That's just like Xbox Game Pass. You know, day one games, $15 a month. 2 years later, it's $30. It always starts out fine and gets so much worse. And it's not just Xbox, it's all of these subscription services. All of these monetization mechanics, they always start out a-okay. It starts off with, hey, it's just a horse skin, and then you get pay-to-win mechanics implemented in premium games that you're paying $60, $70 with, whether that be Star Wars Battlefront 2, whether that be Middle-earth Shadow of War. There's just so many examples of this over the years. This industry has shown time and time again you have to fight back against this greed, or far worse is coming. Now, like I said, Microsoft has been experimenting with ads in many different ways. It isn't just this cloud streaming stuff, because this is also a report in 2022. Microsoft reportedly exploring integrating ads into free-to-play games, just like PlayStation. And this was reported by Business Insider. The tech giant is looking to further opportunities for developers to profit. That's the way that they're describing it. I love it. One of the sources speculated Microsoft isn't currently interested in collecting a cut of ad revenue. We both know that's BS, because it wants to provide more money-making opportunities to developers who make free-to-play games. Yeah, that's what we're going with. Microsoft is said to be aware that this may cause a bad reaction in some players, especially due to the stigma free-to-play games currently have regarding microtransactions and revenue streams. We've heard time and time again also from many executives they want it to be destroyed. They want that stigma to go away. They want all of this to be normalized, and it cannot be, or the gaming industry, especially console premium games, are going to get far, far worse. It's moving cautiously and intends to create a private marketplace where only select brands can insert ads into games in a way that doesn't disrupt the gameplay experience. Now, understand that doesn't disrupt means when you hit a pause menu, when you hit a loadout. That is their way. They just don't mean it being when you're running around for an ad to pop up right in your face. But some executives in this industry definitely over the years have indicated they would actually love that if they could make it happen. Now, Business Insider claims that sources told them early plans to integrate these advertisements, including things like digitally rendered billboards in a car racing game. A lot of people, that is the stuff that's been acceptable, because it has happened over the years. Especially with sports games, you see some of that stuff. Insider was unable to learn if Xbox was also offering other types of in-game ad units, like avatar skins or video ads that play in-game lobbies. Insider was also unable to determine if Microsoft has pitched the Xbox offer to advertisers yet, and I would say that this is probably happening now. I definitely think that with all of the stuff that's going on, especially the questions about growth and sustainability of Game Pass and the Xbox service overall, I think that they're going all in on everything. But Sarah Bond also talked about another way of advertising. This is an article in 2023. Microsoft could start trading ad views for time slices of games. My God, this is what Sarah Bond, the nod toward potential ad-supported game time comes from Xbox corporate vice president Sarah Bond, who told Rolling Stone, she's an Xbox president now, that she's constantly looking to introduce more business model diversity for game developers. We've talked about how we're experimenting with other models, like what does it mean for advertising in games, which is more privately in mobile? Are there models of that work well in PC and console? Bond said, are there other models where you might have time slices of games and stuff like that? Like I said, this has all been there. This has been going on for the last couple of years. It's just been a lot of people defending this, saying, oh, it's just a test. It's not something that they're moving forward with, but here we are now. And Sarah Bond, for what it is worth, she did say that there's an understanding by gamers, or this is an analyst that says there's an understanding by gamers that free-to-play games will carry ads, but that understanding isn't necessarily there for AAA quality games, which might I add most of the time are premium paid games. How players will react if ads are placed in these today's experience since Xbox Game Pass already provides so much value as a bundle. Again, this is a couple of years ago. These ads have to be very unintrusive to maintain a suspension of disbelief core to the gaming experience. Bond seemed to acknowledge this elsewhere in the Rolling Stone interview, saying that any gaming business model should have an endemic link to the nature of the gameplay. Providing creators with options and choice enables them to experiment and do what they like and actually create more immersive and creative experiences without having to fit into a mold. I love that. And I do love the fact that we have actual platforms that do stand up against stuff like this, like Valve with how ads are incorporated into Steam. Gabe Newell and his team at the very least have some standards. Xbox, at least now, not so much. Now, it is important just to remember that Phil Spencer, he has been talking about all of this advertising stuff also over the years. Phil Spencer believes gaming's great path to growth is through monetization model. And he specifically said, intriguingly, Spencer says he believes creating new models of monetization will help expand the audience for gaming globally, which aligns with what Stewart, the CFO of Xbox, was saying as well back around that same time. I think for us as an industry, we should embrace monetization dexterity, because I think it leads to the best creativity, or it leads to, Microsoft, Xbox making a lot of money, because they're always going to get a cut out of all this. Spencer said he recently visited Africa on a Microsoft trip, and he observed that one popular model for internet usage in the country is that people might sit in a taxi or a bus and watch an advertisement to earn themselves currency to spend on using the internet. A model like this could work in gaming, Spencer said, where players engage with ads to earn currency to play games. Could that be a model that works in games? Absolutely. I think I could, Spencer said, acknowledging that he's not talking about a specific plan, but rather a high-level idea that is in no way a concrete idea or plan that may ever come to fruition. A couple of Xbox executives all saying this. I definitely think that it was an idea. Still, Spencer said the video game industry needs to come up with new monetization methods to help reach new audiences and grow the business overall. We need to find new players and new forms of monetization to open up those new player bases and new ways to build games, new creativity. That's a great path to growth. And when you hear him talking about growth, it just reminds me exactly what he also was saying in 2024, and it was his concern about the gaming industry not growing. He said, the console space all up isn't growing across all of them. We love those customers, but in terms of continuing to expand and grow Xbox, it's about PC, it's about cloud, and it's about making our games more available in more places. And the context of all of this, I think that this perfectly encapsulates what's happening right now. Years ago, Xbox leadership, Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, so on and so forth, all of these executives told Microsoft a vision. This was a vision before they made all of their purchases of these studios. I think initially it started off, well, we get all of these studios, we deliver top tier exclusives, people are going to subscribe to Game Pass more and more, and we're going to deliver more games consistently, and it'll give more people a reason to get in on this ecosystem. Obviously, there's been a lot of turmoil in that department, so that hasn't happened. So, in turn, what happened was that they had to pivot. So instead of having these exclusives just to the Xbox consoles and PCs, I said, throw it on everything. Throw it on PC, we'll do cloud, we'll do all of this. Try to get in the hands of everybody. That's why we saw marketing campaigns of like, this is an Xbox, this isn't an Xbox. Gears of War and Halo, staple franchises for the Xbox brand, throw them on the PlayStation 5, throw them on Nintendo Switch. And obviously, that has not led to the growth, again, that Microsoft was hopeful for from the Xbox team. And I think now Microsoft, Satya Nadella, at the top of the company, who's now interested solely really in AI, is like, well, guys, you need to start coughing up the cash that you promised us, the growth that was promised. And I think it's just quite clear with everything that's happened this last couple of days that Microsoft has had enough, and they want to go all in on monetization. And I really do question if this is Xbox's last stand at this point, in which it's either this works or it doesn't, and maybe Microsoft just gives up on this, especially because they don't really care about gaming anymore. Their focus isn't on that. And that's why with going from 20 to 30, that's a big move. That isn't just something that you do overnight. And then with all this advertising, trying to throw this anywhere and everywhere you can now, it just reeks of desperation. And it just makes me extremely concerned with this desperation, what it could lead too. But anyway, the gates of hell have been unleashed. A Trojan horse has now been put upon us, in which advertising, that monetization mechanic, I very much do think that it is in play, and we could be seeing some horrendous ways that other game developers, other companies incorporate it in the future. And yes, it really does begin here with Microsoft introducing it with xCloud. And even then, just with this company of Xbox alone, I look at all these other leaks, things that happen with Black Ops 6, I definitely am suspicious that this is where this ends. I definitely think even from then, we're going to see a lot more advertising, monetization in terms of trying to grow the platform that they're going to push in our faces, just like they have with this Game Pass price hike. But anyway, what do you make of all of this? What are your thoughts on advertising, the leaks that have come about, and the comments over the years by Xbox leadership? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you later.